Well, hey there, folks. Welcome, Simeon here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel live. Thanks for joining me here. Hi, Renee. How's it going? Nice to have you in the room. So we've got a special show for you right now because I've been attending some Bigfoot events. The first one was the Oakridge Sasquatch Summer Festival a couple days ago. And now I'm here in the Blue Mountains, in Oregon and Washington, and we've got some special guests behind us that are going to join us in a moment to share some of the experiences that they've had around here. And so, you know, on this channel, we like to look at a lot of different phenomena, and as you know, there's a lot of aspects of Biggie and Sasquatch, and we heard a very interesting term from Rob Alley at the Oakridge Festival, the Jibberoo. One of the tribes called them the Jibberoo because they have this kind of gibberish sounding language to our ears. But, you know, I really like to look at the anomalous aspects of Bigfoot behavior, like all the phenomena we look at on this channel, right? That there's some other big aspect of science that we've never really talked about much before, and we can see it exhibited in all of these phenomena here. So without further ado, let me just show you a couple interesting photos that I prepared from Oakridge before we get to our guests here in the Blue Mountains, which is, you know, just a beautiful location. Let me just show you where we are. It's just very beautiful and secluded, very quiet. We're very close to a wilderness area where they don't even allow generators or bicycles. So it has a very serene quality to it. So the Oakridge Festival is very interesting. We had a lot of interesting guests. Rob Alley, who I mentioned before, who I've met a few times, and he talked about encounters with Alaskan natives and Sasquatch, and he's just a wealth of history of Alaska all the way down the coast to BC, all the way to Washington State. He's written 2 excellent books, Brushes with Bigfoot and Rain Coast Sasquatch, and I recommend both of them. They're just very well written. And Rob's also an excellent artist, and he illustrates these books too. And so you not only have a very detailed original stories of encounters, you have his drawings to boot. Another person that was there is Don Monroe, who I've mentioned in the past. I first met Don, by the way, at the Bailey Sasquatch Outpost a number of years ago, which really kind of got me going in this area, talking to Don and Igor Burtsev, a Russian researcher who's been researching Sasquatch for 50 years, longer than a lot of us even have been thinking coherently. And it was just very interesting meeting them. It was Igor, the one who told us about the paranormal aspects of Sasquatch. He said it just didn't fit any other paradigm, and he has a PhD in political science. He said it was, there were too many strange aspects to it, including orbs, including objects levitating, psychokinesis, electrical malfunction, and people seeing them go invisible right in front of their eyes throughout Russia. Which is very interesting, just having talked to someone who's been involved longer than anyone else I know, coming to the conclusion it's certainly not just a rare forest ape, and it's not just a kind of a relic human. It's a paranormal relic human or something like this. So Don Monroe is someone that has explored a lot, and especially caves. I just wanted to show you one very interesting photo. He found, he says, at 8,000 feet behind Anaconda, Montana, this very interesting skull. Well, it's a carving of a head. And it doesn't actually look very Native American at all. It looks more Middle Eastern or something ancient. I mean, I can't put my finger on it. And I can't vouch for the authenticity. He says he found it in a cave at 8,000 feet. So hi Pat, how's it going? Thanks for joining us here tonight. So that was one interesting aspect. Don Monroe had this very elaborate rooming. They had the whole room there in Oakridge, in the park, for his photos, hundreds and hundreds of photos of things that he's found in caves, plaster casts, obviously, of footprints, but other types of creatures and things we don't even have names for. So it was very interesting listening to him. Now, remember, Don Monroe wrote that book, The Braided Horses Are Coming. We had M.K. Davis do a very detailed analysis of the Patterson-Gimlin film on a very huge screen. Oh, hey, Corky. Nice to see you again. Thanks for joining us. Welcome back. M.K. Davis, there was a huge inflatable screen in the park. We got to see the Patterson-Gimlin film, as you all know, the film from 1967, filmed by Patterson and Gimlin in Bluff Creek, right? And they've done a lot of analysis of this film and kind of digital enhancement to make it look sharper than some of the third generation films that a lot of us have seen. So we got to look at the Patterson-Gimlin film at 4K on a huge screen, and it was just fascinating because you can see in Patty, as they named her, a lot of muscle movement, which would be impossible from a costume. All the muscles rippling and moving, all the anatomy, of a hominoid in motion. And another fascinating thing was they superimposed somebody who was 6'4" wearing boots in her tracks, walking there a few years later when it still looked the same. Now it's changed over decades, but they had someone in the 70s walk there, and he was a lot shorter than Patty. So she had to be at least 7 feet tall because they walked right down that path, and you could see where this guy was at 6'4", and she was a lot taller. So that was really fascinating. One more thing is we had Rich Germeau, who you've heard of before. He was at the Strange Days event in Olympic Peninsula last year. I've met him before, and he relayed experiences as someone who's a former police, a detective, and some of his experiences encountering Sasquatch left him with kind of like PTSD. Very, he wasn't hurt in any way. There were just very strange encounters that left him feeling kind of shaken. And the Flash of Beauty Resonance Pro crew was there, the people that have produced the Flash of Beauty movies were there with another movie that's coming out. Now, I know you've all seen Bigfoot Revealed, the first one they came out with, and Paranormal Bigfoot. Yours truly was in that. Barb was in that, who we'll hear from a moment. That's a great film. And thanks, Corks. Glad you appreciate the costume here. They have a new movie coming out about the Sierra Camp and Ron Moorhead, who was also, Ron Moorhead was there. We've had videos with him before. We've talked with Ron. They have a new documentary coming out about the Sierra Camp, which seems to me the most in-depth documentary ever made about the High Sierras and the Sierra Camp, where it's the first recorded interactions of humans and Sasquatch vocalizations. You might have heard the Sierra sounds. You can look it up online. And this is now in Kickstarter, so I've already backed it, and I recommend that you go over to kickstarter.com and look for Voices in the Wilderness. I'll post it later in this video on YouTube and the link. And we saw the preview for it going back to the Johnson brothers. I believe even in the 50s, they had activity out there, and Ron had been up there, I believe, 9 times. Now, this is where it really got interesting for me, because Ron said, yeah, you would hear activity, but you would never see them, even when they were crashing around out there in the camp and doing interesting things and making sounds. You couldn't see anything. And then there were the strange orbs and lights moving through the forest. They'd find the footprints, but they could never see them. Even when they looked outside of the cabin really quickly, Ron has said there should have been shadows cast through the hunting structure when the Sasquatch were on the other side of the wall. You can hear this in the Sierra sounds. They put mics in the walls. The creatures are invisible. Now, I've explained this from my point of view in different ways in terms of coherent matter and cloaking, and this is something we're going to talk about more in a few minutes. That may be what's going on here, is a life form that naturally knows how to go into a cloaked mode. This seems to be what the evidence suggests, folks. I'm open to other explanations, but it seems that they can create invisibility at will. And Ron is an early witness to this from the 1970s. So, in any case, you can watch the trailer for this on the Kickstarter program. We also got to see, hi, Sean. Welcome. Thanks for coming all the way over from the UK. I was trying not to make it too late for you guys tonight. So, yes, Corks, that's Barb Shupe in the background, and we're going to hear from her in momentarily. The best part is coming up right now. There's another movie coming out. I think I'm actually going to be in the third one with about sound and coherent sound and ionic acoustic waves and the science behind directed sound that Bob Grenier has called like a Sazer, equivalent of a laser with sound, the way Sasquatch can really seem to focus sound. There's another film that the Flash of Beauty are coming out with, which is about Native American indigenous peoples' contact with Sasquatch. They always said these people, as they call them, the ancient peoples, were here before they got here, coming over the Bering Straits. 15,000 years ago, the Sasquatch were already here in these throughout North America. And they have, hundreds and hundreds of names for Sasquatch. Well, we got to see a clip with Fred Roll, a native from, Athabascan native, I believe, from Alaska, about his, admittedly scary encounter with the Sasquatch with his cousin and uncle. And we got to see about a 40-minute clip of that. I mean, that's gonna give you goosebumps listening to that encounter. So there's 2 more Flash of Beauty movies coming out, something we have looking forward to. So Oakridge was a lot of fun, and one more thing we got to do there before we get to Blue Mountain events here, which is fascinating, is the Flash of Beauty crew took me out to the Owl Moon Labs, which you saw discussed in Flash of Beauty Paranormal Bigfoot. And Toby took us out. He was the one in the movie. You know, he lived out there, and they had these gifting sites where they would leave things for the Bigfoot, and then the Bigfoot would move them around, change them, leave other special gifts and so forth like this. We got to see that site where the gifting sites were. And I was given a little present out there, which is one of their peanut butter jars that people leave at the gifting sites, because we know the Squatch really like peanut butter and sweets, which we'll hear about in a moment from Barb. And now take a look at this. This is one of the empty jars of peanut butter that was found later. So I think we'd have to admit that it requires a thumb to unscrew peanut butter jars, plastic, or you would have to gnash it apart with your teeth. But as you can see, there are no teeth marks here, and there's a big thumb imprint on the plastic peanut butter jar. I have the jar. I will show it to you another time. That's pretty strong plastic, and it would take a lot of strength to compress it with your thumb. You would have to have an opposable thumb. A bear would not be able to do this. If this had been taken apart by other mammals, there'd be teeth marks and so forth, right? So this is physical evidence of something happening there. And one more thing about Oakridge. There's a very excellent museum there run by Priscilla and her husband, Steve, the organizers of the conference. It's an excellent museum, and it has a lot of artifacts and memorabilia from different researchers, including Peter Byrne. But especially fascinating were the knee prints that Toby cast from the Owl Moon Labs area near Cottage Grove, Oregon. Now, Tobe and his friend nearby, Daryl, made their own knee prints to show us the comparison, which look like ordinary knee prints of a human. These knee prints are huge, folks, huge. And to see that in person, I'll show you them another time. They're at the museum. The actual cast of the knee prints they found on the bank beside the road. These are massive knee prints. They took it to a specialist in human anatomy who said these are human, but they're just huge. And there were some hair samples there which they had tested, which came back unidentified. So again, to me, that is more physical evidence. Yeah, Corks, these peanut butter jars, as Barb will tell us in a moment, I mean, they're cleaned out completely. No, they're scooping it out with their fingers. I mean, they could be putting their mouth, who knows how they're doing it, but there are no teeth marks on the plastic, which you would get from squirrels or pika or any other creature. If you've ever left things by a campsite and the next morning something got to it, you'll find teeth marks, but not a creature with an opposable thumb. So that's why it's interesting. So without further ado, we're out here in the beautiful Blue Mountains. Barb invited me to her event, and this is a place, this is my first time here. Hello. Yeah, and let me move over so we can we get you guys a little closer somehow, and I'll move this over if you want to be. We've got Barb and Wayne. So, Barb, thanks for inviting me out here. This is a special treat, I mean, to be live here. Folks, this is kind of interesting. We're in a very remote location, yes, and yet the cell signal at the top of Mesa here is stronger than in most cities I'm in.
It's an excellent signal up here.
So we're able, I didn't expect to be able to do this, Barb, but we're able to broadcast here.
We're on top of the world.
Yeah. So this is Barb, Shupe, and Wayne. And Barb,
everybody.
Stapleton. And Barb, and you've been coming out here a while too, Wayne, right? Is this your first time here?
Or? It's my first time here, but I've been having encounters for 52 years.
You've been here. We'll hear about some of those in a moment. You were telling me earlier.
Yeah.
Barb, so tell us a little bit about what's attracted you to this area, and what have you seen out here? I mean, you've described to me a lot of interesting phenomena that happen right around the campsite here.
Well, I first came here in 2015 as part of a camp out with the Bigfoot community group
Yeah.
and with Tom Cantrell, his group. And that first camp out here just changed everything for me. 'Cause, I had been struggling with the whole woo thing.
Yeah.
I came into this thinking that they were just another form of wildlife. And I had filmed the cloaker.
So Barb filmed the cloaker. You can see this on her YouTube channel.
Yep.
And in Paranormal Bigfoot.
And in the
This
video,
is, they see something like a little chimp or something with a domed head, and when they look at the video, it's just the shimmering predator effect.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Which even the folks at Skinwalker Ranch who analyzed it,
yeah.
they say, can't understand this, right?
Yeah.
So you're familiar with these cloaking experiences.
Yes.
We're not exaggerating here, are we?
Not at all. You know,
Okay.
my first good sighting was of a Sasquatch that just walked behind an invisible curtain, and he just wasn't there anymore. And it took 2 more years until the cloaker event before I finally accepted that it was really happening. And then it was the following summer that I came here for the first time, and that's when I experienced the eye glow, and I was sizzled, which I think is a kind of a mild form of the just the energy that they can send at you.
You've experienced that energy.
Yes, but it was very gentle though. So I was sitting alone by myself in the dark, and somebody had run through the weeds below the campsite where I was sitting at, and I suddenly realized that my whole side was tingling. And I looked, and about 30 feet away in the moonlight, I could see this large black shape rocking back and forth, and his head was just kind of like down. It was just mostly shoulders and a bump. And I sat there for several minutes, trying not to be rude. I'd heard not to stare, so I was looking and going, yep, you're there. And my camera wasn't working at the time. It had died right then, but I didn't really know what to do. I was so new at this. So I sat and I listened, and I just tried to think of things to say, and he was there for several minutes before the sizzling stopped, and then I looked and he was gone.
Interesting. It's an interesting description. Was it kind of a pressure or electrical feeling or heat?
It was like a warm tingling.
A warm tingling. We've heard this from other.
Yeah.
When was this, Barb?
That was July of 2015.
Wow.
Yeah, and I got to see, they turned their eyes on 3 times on that trip, right?
The eyes turned on. We're talking glowing eyes?
Yes, red glowing eyes.
Red glowing eyes, folks.
Yeah. And since then, I've seen them again here in white glowing eyes with a little bit of a yellow tint.
You've seen that out here?
Yeah. So I've seen them here 4 times, close and very clear. And the closest one, the first 2 times, it was about 8 feet from me, right in front of me. Not even that far. I had 2 friends that were standing in front of me, and we were getting ready to go on a night walk, and I could clearly see them. There was, moonlight and firelight and lanterns. I could clearly see them, and right behind them, my friend, right over her shoulder, the eyes turned on and looked at me. And then looked at me and just red almond-shaped eyes, and then turned off. And then it happened again a couple of nights later, doing exactly the same thing in the same place, standing there getting ready to go for our night walk. And
we should say something about Tom. Tom is from the west side of Washington, but he would come out here.
Yeah.
He's a logger, and he came out here and had his own encounters, right?
Yeah.
People are familiar with him. I've met him up several times.
Yeah, this is how we learned about this place, is through him.
Oh, you learned about it through Tom.
Tom's mentor is basically this tribe.
Yes, there's a tribe out here. And by the way, hi, Katie. Katie's done a lot of excellent research, Rocky Mountain research, and we'll see her in a few weeks at the Snippy event in southern Colorado. So, very interesting, Barb. So you were telling me also about other types of eye glow that you've seen here earlier today.
Well,
they just different sized heads, right? The eyes but you couldn't see a creature, but you would see the eyes turn on.
Yeah,
in the middle
I could see my friends, I couldn't see a body or a face, just the eyes. And the smaller one, it was the almond shaped and they were red, but the bigger one, he was probably somewhere between 10 and 12 feet tall.
Golf ball sized eyes?
Tennis ball.
Tennis ball. Okay, so folks, we're talking.
Yeah.
This is not for the tennis ball sized eyes, foot apart,
Yeah.
up 12 feet up.
Yeah, close to that.
Clearly
yeah.
eyes,
Clearly
but you couldn't
eyes.
see anything else. You just saw eyes.
Just the eyes. Well,
And
it was pitch black
it's
under
pitch
the trees.
black under
there
the
was no
trees.
light source there at all.
Yeah.
So
Other than the eyes.
Other than the eyes. And I was on my way down to sit with the rest of the group. We would sit in a circle facing outward, looking for eye shine and sparkles and orbs. And I realized one of my friends hadn't joined our group down there, so I wanted to go tell her. So I went back up to the main camp and said, hey, we're doing this. But she was in a deep conversation with Tom, so I just left and went back down. And on the way back, I'm walking under the trees past where my tent is, and I looked over toward my tent, and that's where the big eyes were. And to this day, I regret that I didn't do better, but I looked at him and I said, I'm going to go sit with everybody down here and look for eye shine. And I just kept walking. And that was...
We can have different reactions in new situations like that. We don't
Yeah.
need unpredictable.
Yeah, so
So that's fast. So there's another aspect of this you were talking about earlier today, which was the rock throwing. Should I
Yes.
play the little 59-second clip and then you can comment on it?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, let me. Shh.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
This is our emotional Squatch animal here. One sec. So this is Barb talking about earlier today. You've all heard of this. These are rocks coming out of nowhere, hitting people at laterally being thrown. We're not talking about dropping down in an arc. They come across. They're good with rocks. Let's just take a listen to this. Good one.
Okay, so when we were here last year, my friend Penny was sitting here where Lee is.
Yeah.
A pebble was thrown from over here and hit her in the side of the head. Didn't hurt her. She was
Hit her in the side of the
Yeah,
head.
it just bounced off her hat. I think it was the next day. We're all sitting here. A rock comes flying out of there, horizontal, like through the group, and hits the collection of empty water bottles we've got over there. Kind of explodes the pile. They flew. And then on the very last day, there was only 3 of us left, and I was sitting just right here, and a few feet from me was my friend Randy, who was sitting right there. And I turned and looked at him, and when I looked at him, this little pebble just kind of appears here and just drops. And I picked it up, and it had a little Sasquatch face on it.
Maybe it was the pike throwing them.
Maybe.
Barb, so the rock story, this is a good one. Yes, so this is what people say, well, you don't have to be a creature. We don't know creatures that can throw rocks with that accuracy that are the size of gophers and things.
Yeah, it was incredibly accurate. Yeah.
So this gets more astounding, folks. Barb, you were telling me, you mentioned it right at the end of this little clip. Rocks that are apports, these are things that come right out of thin air. Am I correct?
You're correct.
And one of them happened just this visit?
Yes. Yesterday we were sitting down here in the shade, and I saw it drop. Just a big rock about so big just dropped and hit the ground right there where we were all sitting. But I'm not sure that these are apports. I'm thinking this could be a cloaked individual was standing there holding it and just dropped it.
Or in the tree.
Yeah.
We're not sure.
Yeah.
But this is the interesting thing, folks. If you think that Sasquatch is just a rare North American wood ape, other people have encountered what Barb is talking about. There's a new book by Stanley Milford called Paranormal Navajo Ranger. He's worked with Jonathan Dover. You've heard of John and Stanley on the Navajo reservation, where I was fortunate to work during college for a few months over the summer. And Stanley talks about these showing up. Now, this is what's interesting. They happen around haunted sites, and they were coins, according to Stanley. I don't want to give too much away from the book, but I couldn't forget this. Coins that always land heads up. And you would see them come out of thin air and laterally across one corner of the ceiling to the far end of the room, always heads up.
Wow.
And towards the end of the book, I'm not going to give too much away here, but they have a Sasquatch sighting. Basically, these Paranormal Navajo Rangers were a unit of 14 or 15 people within the Navajo law enforcement administration which works with the federal government, but they're also independent. And they would go out and investigate Sasquatch sightings. You know, people on the Navajo reservation live very far afield. Sometimes it's elderly people who live alone in their howans out there, these six-sided homes they built. And they would have encounters out there. So he and Jonathan would go out to these very distant locations to investigate. And one time he said, just after they even had their own sighting, these coins showed up in the back of the truck out of nowhere.
Wow, that's cool.
Heads up.
Heads up.
So I mean, I'm just repeating what he said. I haven't verified it, but it's just interesting. If you think Sasquatch is just a flesh and blood creature, hi Fox, how you doing? Thanks for joining us. If you think they're just a flesh and blood creature, here we're having another witness tell us about objects appearing, you know, seemingly out of nowhere. It's very hard to make sense of if this is just an ordinary animal.
Not ordinary. Not even close to ordinary.
As Barb said in Paranormal Bigfoot, oh, Bigfoot can do this. Oh yeah, and he can do this. Oh no, he can also do this. And we don't know the extent of what they can do, but
yeah.
We had a guest earlier today and yesterday, Carlos, who had done a lot of investigation, especially around European cities. Who would have thought it? Where the Sasquatch, you can see the tree structures, things that look very squatchy, right out on the outskirts of Vienna and other cities there. And you know, he was telling us that, you know, we don't really know exactly what they're capable of doing, right?
No, we don't. No, you know, all we can go by is what we experience. You know, we can take our experiences, the experiences of other people, put it together, try to make sense of it. But even then, it's just puzzle pieces. We're so far from a full picture.
So far from a full picture.
Yeah.
It's folks, it's just fascinating. And I think for a lot of us, you know, we get this criticism from the more mainstream Sasquatch researchers. And for me, you know, I was around Grover Krantz at WSU for many years when I was a grad student. He was just one floor up, and it wasn't something on my radar back then. But we have a lot of witnesses like Barb, and we'll hear from Wayne in a second. And there's more and more evidence that this is happening. Now, whether science can deal with it, it's sort of tough luck. It's what people experience. It's what the witnesses say they're experiencing. And you're not allowed to edit it out or delete it because it doesn't fit your little paradigm-y thingy.
Yeah.
Doesn't fit your paradigm-y thingy. That's not science, folks. You got to go with what... And I think it's interesting that what Barb's talking about here, the glowing eyes, the rock throwing, we're going to hear about their predilection for honey buns in a sec. But it's consistent, folks. That's what we're looking for in science, is consistency. You get this from one witness to the next. Just do your research. You're going to see it's the same thing, the same strange thing over and over. But I mean, electromagnetism was strange 120 years ago. No one believed in radio waves. They thought it was some sort of fantasy.
Yeah, well, they're invisible.
Yeah, can't exist. And Barb, you were telling me about the honey bun incident.
Okay.
Now, this is fast. Can you tell us what do you do with honey buns, why honey buns, and what happens with the honey buns?
Okay, so the whole honey bun thing started the year before last when Arla Collette Williams joined us here, and she brought 2 boxes. Well, we have a spot that's just out in the woods here where we take our offerings, and we talk to the Sasquatch and say these things are for you. So she took one of the boxes out. I showed her where to put it, and as we were walking away, I said, please bring the wrappers back. And so we would go up every other hour or so and check, and within a couple hours it was gone. The box was gone. And it wasn't gone for very long. It was brought back. It had been ripped open in a way that you could see there was a thumb that went in on this side and fingers on this side, and then the box had been ripped open, and one of the honey buns had been taken out and eaten. I supposedly
I'm going to show your photo that Barb so kindly sent me a little while ago. This is what it looks like for a thumb to go through a honey bun box.
So then they took out one of the honey buns, and the honey bun was gone, but the wrapper was stuffed back in the box.
So they're putting the wrappers back in.
Because she
I
asked.
asked
Because
them
you
to.
asked them. So this is very interesting. Barb asked them to put the wrapper. We don't want to litter the
Yeah.
campground.
I didn't say put it back in the box. I just said bring it back.
Bring it back. And the wrappers were back. And you showed me another box today where
Yeah.
another one had been...
Well,
It was a little more complicated, but
Yeah.
again, the wrapper. Get this, folks. The wrappers are being put back into the honey bun box. I mean, bears normally don't
no.
do that with your honey. Yeah.
No, well, so last year I brought a honey bun box and I put it out there and I did the same thing again and said bring the wrappers back, and they did the same thing again. They opened the box exactly the same way. The thumb was there, the fingers were there, ripped it open, and the wrapper was stuffed back into the box between two of the other honey buns. So I'm thinking they don't really like the honey buns. They're just kind of taking them to be polite because the honey buns kind of suck. They're gross.
Yeah, but
So-
they're being polite.
If
Yeah,
they
they
liked
are,
them, they'd
so-
all be gone.
Yeah.
If they liked them, they'd all be gone.
Exactly.
You're right,
Well,
like
so
apples.
I
Yeah,
thought I'd
exactly,
offer something
exactly.
better this year, so I brought them little cherry fruit pies and the honey bun box because
Yes.
you have to have your control, right?
Yes, and
So-
how do they like the pies?
Well, I put both boxes out there side by side, and the honey bun box was not touched. The cherry pie box disappeared, and when it came back, it hadn't been ripped open quite the same way, but it's not exactly the same shaped box either. So it was ripped open. It just didn't have the thumb and finger marks in it, and I found it with 3 wrappers on the ground beside it. Now, there had been some chewing from rodents, so I don't know how much of that was Sasquatch and how much was little critters. But I brought the box back and I left it on the picnic table in camp. And the next day I was thinking, okay, there's still 3 pies in this box with the 3 wrappers that I picked up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to take those 3 pies out and I'm just going to give those to them because I just wanted them to have them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I went to pull out one of the 3 that were left, but there was actually only 2 in the box and 4 wrappers. So overnight they had come into camp and taken one out when it was on the picnic table
And put the wrapper
and
back.
put the wrapper back in the box.
Sounds like an intelligence. So we could say that
Yeah.
9 out of 10 Squatch prefer cherry pies to honey
that's
buns.
easy to say that, yes.
This is our
that's-
advertisement.
Yeah.
No, but I think, folks, this is incredible. Again, unless you want to argue that this is all some sort of hoax and someone in Barb's group is doing this, it's very hard to explain how a typical forest animal would be putting wrappers back. All right? I think you have to admit that.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of intelligent activity that, again, suggests to us that they're a type of human that's just way ahead of us on the paranormal spectrum. I mean, just has abilities that most of us don't think we have.
Right.
And can do a lot of things that it seems like we forgot how to do if they're the original humans or something like that. We don't know the full story, but it's an aspect that science is very uncomfortable with. A lot of the Bigfoot community is uncomfortable with. They want to call it woo. But there's nothing woo about quantum mechanics. The last I checked, E equals mc squared, right? So energy equals mass times speed of light squared. This goes back 100 years. I don't think anyone's doubting this anymore. There's no woo around conversion of energy to mass. Those of us with Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project, decompression of matter, energy exchange, we've been talking about this. But, I mean, this is basic science at this point. I guess to some of the Squatch community, I'm not trying to put them down, because they've played their role in doing the research and getting it, establishing it. But, if you're going to call that woo, you're about 100 years out of date. Because back then, there were people criticizing Einstein for this. I came across in the library once, it was a book called 100 Scientists Prove Einstein Wrong. 1923. I don't think we remember any of the names of those scientists. I think Einstein turned out to be right. It's as late as 1995, they discovered the Bose-Einstein condensate at the NIST lab. I mean, it took 70 years after he predicted it with Bose, Satyendra Bose, that there was this wave-like type of matter, but it can take a while to prove these things. But it turned out, I think we agree that Einstein was right, and Bose-Einstein condensate, photoelectric effect.
Astro.
So this is not woo, but it might seem to woo the people that just aren't comfortable with the idea that matter and energy can transform. You know what it is, Barb? It happens in the laboratory. We're saying, okay, it's in the laboratory. It's in this little test tube. Well, we're not comfortable with it out on a macro scale. It's uncomfortable. You know,
But it's so much more fun out here.
it's more fun out there. And folks, this is a lot of fun. And we're talking about phenomena that challenge our existing paradigm, which is a good thing. Because this happens every 100 years or so, and the paradigm changes. You know, Faraday, Maxwell, hello. So we want to get to Wayne here for a second. Before any other stories we want to talk about out here, there's so many. Barb was telling me a lot. Wayne, what got you interested in this topic? What are some of your experiences?
Well, I didn't get interested in this topic. This topic got interested in me.
Okay.
I had a female come to me when I was a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
And it's just been one thing after another.
The Midwest, you were telling me.
Yeah, I'm originally from Michigan. I've had that encounter was on the outskirts of Detroit in the Lakes district, basically. And every time I would be out there as a teenager on the weekends, because I was a fisherman, I was a kid, and I'd love night fishing. Well, every time I'd be out there in my boat, I would see her eyes. She had the red eye shine. And what I've come to understand from them and from other researchers as well, red is curiosity. For lack of a better term, their eyes are almost like mood rings. They change.
Oh, interesting.
They change with their attitude.
Wow.
Okay, the white, yellow, black.
Yeah.
I mean everything. Like we could spend an hour talking about that, but we won't. So, all through my life, it just seems like I've been in all these situations where it comes up.
Yeah.
Okay, but just until recently, I mean, I raised a whole house full of kids, and I was very prominent in the automotive engineering realm. So I really didn't make a splash about it. I didn't go out and I do all this stuff. But again, it just seemed to come to me. But now that I'm, semi-retired and all my kids are adults and grown, here we go. And the spirits led me to Barb. And so on. Now I'm part of the Shupe troop. And I am learning, just astronomically just by being out here with them. And it's my experience that, like the cloaker thing, it's been my experience, these aren't just flesh and bloods. These are spiritual beings, to the point, think of it like you and I. I mean, we all believe we have a soul, right? That's our spirit, our spiritual being inside this avatar we call a body. Okay, it's the same with them. The only difference here, they're still in nature, and they have so much more abilities than us, than we do. We gave up it all. For what? For the civilization, whatever. The cloaker video is a prime example of what I just said. Our sight is minimum and maximum, right, in the light district. They have the ability to manipulate the frequency that their bodies emanate. And that is the cloaker effect. Basically, so if you look at, you mentioned Predator. Okay, so if you look at, he's one of those in his arm, he changes his frequency. Okay, they do it naturally. They don't need an armband.
So you think that's what they're doing, is modulating
I know
the frequency? It's like
I've had
a variable photoelectric effect, like they're in control of it.
Yes.
And that's very, very interesting. Wayne, have the nature of your encounters with these creatures over the years, has it been mostly peaceful, harmonious? Is any of it
I'm glad you asked that.
frightened you at all, or what? Because you mentioned some other entities beyond Bigfoot.
Yeah, right. They are as varied as you and as a human being is. Okay, if I were to show up in your bedroom at 2:00 in the morning, and you're with a lady friend, and you're going to be pissed, and you're going to be throwing my tushy out the window. It's the same thing. And I had that exact thing. I walked into a nursery. Mom and Dad were gone, and Junior was watching the kids. Okay, I was surveying some property. My wife and I were going to build a log cabin lodge. I was surveying some property, was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I heard the little one in the bushes. I went to negotiate. I went to investigate, and Junior went, "Dude," in my head. I'm not kidding.
In your head.
They've thought planting or manipulation, all kinds of things. But anyhow, in my head, I'm hearing, "You don't belong here. Get out." and 2 trees start doing this to get my attention off of the bush where the little one was.
Yeah.
Okay, so he escorted me out, for lack of a better term, and to the point that I was far enough away to where then he released me from his communications, and I went on my happy way, and I had the whole situation confirmed by the owner of the property when he denied knowledge of anything, but it was so severe that it was like, I think they'll protest too much, kind of a thing. So, and then years later, I took my teenagers back to show them where I had this encounter, and we had another encounter at the exact same spot. So it was like, they're back, kind of a thing. And my 13-year-old, it just jumped out of his skin. He's like, "Can we leave now, Dad?"
Did you
she yelled at
change
us.
your mind about taking possession of the property because of that encounter?
No.
Okay.
Actually, my angel investor wanted us to do other things
Okay.
before he allowed us to do that. And then the crash of 07. So thank God it never happened, because I would have lost everything.
Fascinating.
But they're still there. I've been on that property in the last few years.
They're familiar with you now.
Yeah.
Yes, that's very interesting. And this is interesting, folks. The aspect is people build relationships with these Sasquatch. I'm sure
Absolutely.
Barb coming out here year after year in the Blue Mountain area, they probably know you by now, right? Would
I
you
think
say
so.
there?
Yeah, this is my 10th season here.
10th season. I mean, yeah. Barb, you were talking also. Thanks for sharing that way. Anything else you want to share? Feel free. Another thought came to my mind. There are these little things you called space balls.
Space balls.
The little glowing. What did you call them?
Yes.
What did we call them?
Ghost balls.
Ghost balls. Okay,
Ghost
these are little
balls.
things. You pick them up and they go woo woo, or they
Yeah,
make lights.
they're-
Now, there was something strange happening last night that I observed.
Yes.
And as Barb explained to me, if you touch one of these little balls, I'll bring up a photo in a second, they sparkle LED lights for 10 seconds and turn off. There's no other mode. It's on or off. And yet last night, one of them, during Carlos' talk, it's just going and going. And I was even wondering, is this one of these multi-mode little toys you could switch modes and have it on? Because, okay, it's interesting. It's on all the time. When we were at Strange Days, there was someone that put one in, off in a bush and left it on. And then someone said maybe it shouldn't be on all the. So I thought of something like that. But this was just going and going.
Yeah.
And they move around. You saw some of them move almost on their own.
Yeah. Yesterday there was one that, this is the third camp out we've had where we've been using these balls now to communicate. And we put them around our group area. And we always put one on the fire, that we build a wall of firewood next to the group site and set one on top of that. So when we're having a conversation, these balls will light up and go off in accordance to what we're talking about. It's as though they're putting in their own 2 cents, and it's like, oh yeah, I agree with that. The ball flashes. Okay, so I will have them all over camp, and it'll be like one night one will go off, and then that one will never go off again, and then the next night a different one will go off, and then that one will never go off again. And that's kind of how it was here until last night. So we had already had one of them on the wood pile that was going off a few nights before, but then it just died. It wouldn't turn on anymore.
I'll show you. It's a very small little thing.
Yeah.
And it was moving around with no wind on its own.
Well, that was midday yesterday.
Midday. It's just going off the side. I mean,
That would actually move the opposite direction of the wind.
it went the opposite direction of the wind. Go figure.
Well, it moved twice. It moved
Yeah.
to the opposite side of the steps and the next step down, and then later on it moved to, it was on the ground on the opposite side of the steps.
But the tech behind those balls, they're like the speaker boxes.
Yeah.
They react to, energy, spiritual energy. These are the same thing. So when something comes near it, it will light up. And then if it stays near it, it'll stay lit. It'll just keep going.
And we saw that last night. And I
Exactly.
was thinking, wait a minute, what's going on here? Did they switch it to always on mode? You wouldn't
No.
do that
You
with
can't.
these. It would wear out the non-replaceable battery.
Exactly.
Well, what was really interesting about last night was as soon as he started his presentation, the ball started going off almost constantly. It would stop for a few seconds, but it would go way longer than the 10 seconds that it's supposed to. And there was another ball in camp behind us that also went off a few times. Well, midway through Carlos's presentation, he paused to take a little break. And at that point, the ball stopped. And when he came back, whoever had been on the other side of that wood pile that was activating the one that was right there had left, because that ball never went off again throughout the rest of his presentation.
Right.
So it was done.
It's strange, and I saw this.
Yeah, and I was just thinking
this.
it maybe they had burned out the battery or ruined it. I actually went over and picked it up and checked, and no, it went off, and it stopped after 10 seconds.
It's
so
a
it
very
was still
interesting idea.
functioning the way it should.
Corky's saying here these are like little EM interfaces that are very sensitive.
Yeah, she's right.
It's correct, Corky. Thanks for that observation. Before we go, it's getting to be a little late. I'll just show you as the sun's going down what it looks like out there. Again, beautiful location. It's starting to get dark and colder here. Anyone have any questions before we go for the evening? Anything else either you want to mention? Barb, I just want to ask you, we've talked about these different phenomena around here that you've shared. Thank you very much for sharing all that. But you've actually had sightings here too,
oh, yes,
right?
Yes.
Physical.
We had a group
sightings.
sighting. He was just like 200 feet from us here about 5 years ago. The whole group was down here watching the sunset, and they turned around and it was like, there's a Sasquatch on the hill. And it was one of those experiences that was completely intentional. He stepped out from behind a tree, took a few steps, turned around, walked back, just to make sure everybody got a good look. So,
did you hear anything as he walked?
I did not, but we went back the next day and did our best to recreate it. We put a person in that spot and figured out he was 12 feet tall, and the patch of grass where he was originally standing was mashed down. It was huge.
Huge. You can see where the grass and so this is another very interesting paradox, folks, a very interesting contrast. Barb was telling me, we've been talking about the sort of etheric aspects of the Squatch and the energetic aspects and the glowing eyes and the feelings they can project onto your body. But you told me earlier today of an experience where you actually heard one walk down and it was like clunk, 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 and you mentioned it to someone, and then here they come back up, boom, boom. Yeah. Really not a deer.
Not a deer. No, it's boom, 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 boom. When the big ones run through, it shakes the ground. Yeah, it's massive. This was my first trip here. It was one of my friends had come from Colorado, and her husband had accompanied her just for the trip. He wasn't a Bigfooter. And the last night we were here, we were sitting at the fire, and I saw down at the other end of camp, just in the moonlight, a big black shoulder at the edge of the tree line, and then it went under the trees, boom, 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 boom. And John, the guy that's sitting across from me, he turns around and he's like, that was a Sasquatch. I'm like, yeah, it was. So he gets the stick and he's kicking all the coals together to get the fire going again. And then we got this little, circle of light, and I looked around and I said, this is all we can see now is this little circle of light. And he looked around and he kicked it all back apart again. About that time, boom, 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 back through camp the way it had come. And that was a life changer for him for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So folks, you have to, we're coming to you live here. This is sort of the magic of modern technology, isn't it?
It's pretty cool.
And we have our eyes open. Anything could happen at any
moment.
time.
Yeah.
Corky's mentioning ball lightning orbs. You've seen those out here. Barb was telling me he's seen them move through the trees, right at the treetops. Yeah. I mean,
last year you had the big one behind the.
Oh yeah, I've got
shed,
right there where behind where we have our firewood stacked. There, I got a purple orb on camera.
Purple orb on camera. So the modern name for these are mobile luminous objects, according to David Freiberger of DOE Slack. Okay. They have a name for these, and that includes Hessdalen lights, Marley Woods, and all these. It's the whole family of phenomena. I mean, we don't know how they're different characteristics, but ball lightning, orbs, earth lights are all considered by the open-minded scientists, I should say, physicists, of mobile luminous objects that seem to be related. Different angles of electricity and magnetism compressed to form.
They're intelligent.
They're intelligent.
More than us.
Intelligent.
Far more than us.
They do seem. This is so. Even for people like me that are sort of looking to simplify a little bit, you have to say they have an intelligence. They seem to follow people. Yeah. Now, the conventional explanation, folks, they're following a static gradient. But you talk to people that I've talked to these people. It was walking towards us, trundling through across slowly in our direction, And anyway, it's fascinating stuff. So anyway, thanks for your comments, Bigfoot Society. Emily, thanks for joining us. Sean, Klotsky, thanks guys for joining us. It's been a lot of fun. Anything else anyone wants to add? Barb, how do people get in touch with you or you have your own YouTube channel, am I right?
Yep.
What's it called?
Just Barb Shupe just Google me.
Barb Shupe.
I'm on YouTube. I have a Facebook page where I've been enjoying making reels with some of my best videos. It's kind of a fun challenge to squeeze all the best stuff into a minute. So you can find some really good things there. And I've got a book coming out here shortly, The Unseen Audience, Walking with Sasquatch.
You have a book coming out. The
Yeah.
Unseen Audience Walking. We'll have to be looking for that.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty good.
When should we look for that?
Any day now.
Any day. Unseen Audience Walking. I like it.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So you can go to Barb's YouTube channel. You can look for her book. And you also have your own live streams occasionally. You have a group. And
yeah, sometimes. Well, we usually keep the live streams just within the group.
It's private. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. We do have one question here before we go. This is a hard one to answer. The question was, how do the orbs relate to Sasquatch? Are Sasquatch converting to orb?
The orbs are Sasquatch.
The orbs are Sasquatch.
They can mold right into it.
They can. We've heard this before, obviously, in Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot, Harold and Cody at the end. You've seen the film.
Yeah.
If you haven't, you need to see this.
Sometimes orbs are square.
Turns into a square.
And
a glowing square.
Sometimes those orbs can go into another creature.
Can go into as bright as the sun, he said. And then it shoots off. Can go into. I've heard this early on from Colorado witnesses.
The story we were talking about with the otter last night.
Right, that was Rob Alley's story of the Sasquatch turning into apparently a river otter, according to
the bigger ones.
No, it was the river otter.
Was it?
Yep.
Okay.
Rob and I got into a discussion about this.
Don't argue with Rob.
It's a Rob river otter.
Trust me,
I know. Bunch of fishermen that don't even believe in this stuff, and they see it walking. What is that on the beach? Droom, droom, droom. A little mist goes by from the sea, and all of a sudden it's a river.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know, but that's where Rob said, even in his book, Brushes with Bigfoot, he said, this is one story. I'm kind of more in the solidity direction, but
until you have the encounter, you don't believe it.
And he said that's one of them that was, suggested morphability, transmutation, transmutation quarks.
She knows.
Anyway. Well, folks, thanks a lot. I appreciate you watching, and thanks for joining us. It's a very special broadcast. And we'll see you around soon. Take care for now.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.